Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of News in Motion. Here on News in Motion, our Thursdays are what we like to call Friday's Eve. And we have Town Hall Thursday, a segment that everyone loves. So that will be happening today. Today is also February 15th, 2024. We hope that you enjoyed your Valentine's Day. If you did something for somebody special, let us know in the chat. Or if you took that day to love on yourself, let us know what you did for yourself as well. I see you, Mr. Regina Shorts and Miss Marianne Jackson, tuning in through YouTube. We can also be found on Facebook. Excuse me. Facebook, LinkedIn. We can also be found on audio and podcast as well. Good morning to you, Miss Rosanna Bivens, and good morning to you, Miss Adrian, tuning in through YouTube. I hope you all are doing well on this fantastic Thursday, this Throwback Thursday, Town Hall Thursday, whatever you want to call it. Of course, we'll be joined by Miss Gail Daly momentarily. And, of course, we have a guest with us joining us for Town Hall Thursday. Good morning to my mother, Miss Latrice Jones, who is finally tuning in through YouTube. She is finally tuning in through YouTube. She finally was able to join us on the tube of you. So good morning to you, Mama Bear. Good morning to you, Mama Bear. So without further delay, be sure that you grab your paper, grab your pen, invite a friend, and we'll be right back after this brief intro.
News in Motion.
Y'all are rocking it out in YouTube. What? Latrice Jones finally pulled the plug on Facebook and moved over to YouTube. I see you, Pastor Alex, coming in on Facebook. I also see Kimberly coming in on Facebook. And Felicia Williams is also coming in on Facebook. I see Kim Edmondson jumping in on YouTube. Deborah Johnson's on YouTube. Adrian's on YouTube. The YouTube people are in the room. Listen, if the rest of y'all just want to move on over to YouTube, it is youtube.com/Gail Dudley. Oh my gosh, y'all just made my day coming in here on YouTube. We have noticed that Facebook is shrinking us down. We went through the back office on Tuesday looking to see, after I gave y'all the announcement that Meta has made the decision to hide political content, social justice. I gave y'all a whole list of all that. We were warned ahead of time. We had to go search for it, so it was out there. And so they're going to be suppressing that information. So many people are already saying they can't find us. We've got a lot of emails saying or messages saying we can't find you because they are lowering our algorithm. So here's your opportunity to follow us on YouTube. And once that happens, we will still have our page where we'll put information up there. If it's seen, it's seen. If not, well, whatever. But it will be over there with on YouTube. Y'all are not joking today. Y'all, it's Town Hall Thursday and it's going to be off the chain. So I'm really going to ask you all right now, text your friends, give them the YouTube link. Text your friends. Put up the YouTube link for me, Isaiah. And so when people have any questions, text your friends and say you want to check in on this Town Hall Thursday today. It's going to be on and popping. I want y'all to know that. Y'all, today is Thursday, February the 15th. I don't know if my son has the show on or not, but if he does, I'm sure he's with my dad. So happy birthday, Dad. My father is 88 years old today. So happy birthday to my father. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I can't wait to get all my siblings over there. We're going to probably be cutting up around 2:30 today. But happy birthday to my father, Louis Pryor Jr. He is 88 years old today. So happy birthday to my dad. I am Gail Dudley. I am your host, y'all. We are knocking on 4 years of News in Motion. Can y'all believe that? We are knocking on 4 years of News in Motion. And I must tell y'all, I've been trying to find our footing. I've been sharing with you all, and our guest is going to talk about this as well when he comes on. But I've been sharing with you all that um, anytime Meta's trying to suppress political content and headline news and social justice, many people are trying to suppress it. There's a lot of misinformation and disinformation that is out there. We're noticing that that viewership is decreasing across. It's not just one platform or somebody who's known and somebody who isn't known. Even taking somebody who is known, they're communicating as well. Their numbers are steadily dropping. So there's something going on. So we're going to ask you all to help us do the work. If you like the content that you're receiving, put it out there. If they don't want to tune in Tuesday, every week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, tell them, hey, check out That's Happening Tuesday or Workshop Wednesday or That's Happening or Town Hall Thursday, whatever it is, let's get it out there. Pastor Alex says, what's interesting is all of a sudden Facebook have been making it easy for me to jump on in the morning. This is a recent occurrence. Really? When you say easy, tell us more. What do you mean by easy? And who knows? They're probably listening to us. So they're probably saying, let's make them look like they don't know what they're talking about. But yeah, let us know what you mean by easy. What is making it easier to do that? So, y'all, it's Town Hall Thursday. But before I get there, I do have some news I want to share with you all. I was going to make it all Town Hall Thursday, but it's important to share this. At least one person was killed and 21 others were wounded after a shooting broke out near Kansas City Union Station following the conclusion of the Chiefs celebratory Super Bowl parade. Yeah, as of this writing, as of this announcement, as of this broadcast, 15 victims had life-threatening injuries, with 2 in critical condition. 8 of those wounded were children. Officials said the shooting was neither terrorism nor a targeted attack. I don't quite get that yet, and I'm gonna still pay attention to that to find out how they're labeling that so fast. Gunfire erupted around 2 p.m. local time after at least 2 people began arguing near the entrance of the route where the Chiefs were celebrating Sunday's Super Bowl title win. An estimated 1 million people were in the larger area, with crowds making their way to the train station to leave when the incident occurred. So, y'all, what they're finding out so far is details on what led up to the altercation are still being pieced together. They don't really know. 3 people were said to have been detained by police. The victim, who was fatally shot, is said to be Lisa Lopez Galvin, a local radio DJ. So as more information comes out, we'll post it because we don't come back on until Tuesday. But if there's something that's major, of course, we always have the opportunity to pop in here. Let's see. Pastor Alex says, you now show up in my thread wall before this week. I had to go to your page to find the morning session. That's interesting. Thank you. What's up, Odessa? Good grand rising to you. What's up, Dr. Antoinette? So thank you for sharing that, Pastor Alex. Thank you so much. So we'll just stay tuned. So do what's best for you all. Thank y'all for shouting out my daddy. That's my daddy. All right, y'all, it's Town Hall Thursday. So I want to start here before I bring on our guest. Good morning, Judy Neal. Travis Kelce, y'all know that name, right? Is now said to executive produce My Dead Friend Zoe, which is the first film. Now remember, Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, which is the first film to be financed partially using the tax credits from the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act. Okay, from the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act. Now, this is Variety that's reporting. So today, before this news even came out early this morning, that he's going to produce this film that's partially financed from the tax credits of the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act. I have been talking to one of our regular contributors, Pastor Derek Holmes, and we have a whole lot we getting ready to break down, and I hope y'all have pen and paper. I hope y'all have pen. This comes straight from the White House. Y'all, I hope you have pen and paper. The information we're going to roll out today is going to make you say, what? And we're going to try our best to dig in as much as we can. Come on in here, Derek Holmes. And as he's coming in here, let me share who he is. So some of y'all are like, well, isn't he just a pastor? First of all, just a pastor gets on my nerves. Take the word just out the way. Let me give you just a little bit about who he is. Y'all, homie hangs out at the White House, okay? He knows firsthand what's going on. And he's kind of like, don't say all that. But I'm saying it because I want y'all to know that that's what he does, okay? He can call up people in the room, okay? And I love it because you don't hear that boastfulness coming out. He just is called to do an assignment and he goes into the assignment. He is a freelance writer. He gets paid to write. Hello, somebody. He gets paid to write, okay? He was a national organizer with Acorn. Y'all remember that, right? We were just talking about how it disappeared when Obama went to run for president. So, and it disappeared because of the right. I want y'all to know this. He and I worked together with the Amos Project, which was the Ohio organizing collaborative, where they didn't like us. We cut up all the time, It is what it is. we would hear something. No, that ain't right. We not doing that. And we were the ones that was gathering people and educating people and getting the information out here. So this is who we have on here. I just don't want y'all to miss it. Y'all, Derek Holmes. This is Town Hall Thursday. He hangs out at the White House. Okay, just wanted to say that. Now that I had that out the way, welcome, sir. How are you? How are you? How are you?
I'm doing great. What a great introduction. Praise God.
I thought I'd let the people know. Like, let the secret out. Like, he call up the VP. Hey, I'm in town. like, can I pass into the house? But I love it. What's up, Heather? I see you, Esther. I see you, Shirley. All right, y'all. So this came out. All these reports started coming out, and Derek and I did our homework. So President Biden issued 2 executive orders directing federal agencies to take comprehensive action to address barriers to opportunity for underserved communities and to embed equity into all aspects of federal decision making. Now, they celebrated the 1-year anniversary yesterday, and every cabinet member had to produce their findings. All right, now let me say this. I think when we're talking critical thinking, I want y'all to think of several questions that I formulated, so you can put these out here. What specific initiatives have the federal government implemented to promote racial equity and support underserved communities in recent years? That's one. Another one, can you provide data? So when you go to these town hall meetings, questions, can you provide data or examples demonstrating the financial health improvements of underserved businesses and communities as a result of the government support or intervention? Okay. Another one, how is the federal government actively working to end gender-based workforce discrimination and promote gender equity in the workplace? Got another one for you. What measures are being taken to address discrimination in home appraisals and ensure fair valuation for properties in all communities? I have about 5 more, but I'm going to put those in the Friday rundown. If you do not get the Friday rundown, go to GailDutley.com. Hopefully Isaiah will pop that up there real quick. Go to GailDutley.com. A pop-up box will come up. Put in your information. We're going to put, that's has become an educational newsletter, okay? It's free, but you got to go there to get it, okay? Now, why am I putting these questions out here? I'm putting these questions out here because after what we're about to break down with y'all today, We need to have an understanding of what our local reps are doing on a local level and what our Congress people and senators are doing. We need to really jump in on this. So, Derek, you ready to jump in?
Yeah, let's jump in. Look,
Let's jump in.
think about.
Right. So, as you read and I read, because I sent you the homework, um, they're talking about all of this that happened a year ago. They celebrated the anniversary yesterday. And they said research finds that the gaps in labor market opportunities for women and people of color cost the US 2.6 trillion. That's with the T dollars in foregone GDP in 2019. Stop. Everybody get out your pen and paper. You need to be asking the question, well, what does GDP stand for? Well, I'm about to tell you. It's the gross domestic product. Now, I did go and get the definition, although you should do this on your own. But I'm going to quickly give you the simple definition. And that is GDP measures the monetary value of final goods and services. It counts all of the output generated within the border of a country. Don't miss that, y'all. Please don't miss that. Because what we're about to break down, you're going to need to understand this, okay? We're teaching today. It's a town hall, but we're teaching. So let's just back up. This act that we're sharing from the White House is talking about historically underserved communities, including rural communities, communities of color, tribal communities, LGBTQI plus individuals, religious minorities, people with disabilities, women and girls, and other communities impacted by persistent poverty. Ooh, that's a whole lot. Let's start there, Derek. What is all of this and why is it necessary?
Well, first, again, thank you for the opportunity to share. Again, I don't take it for granted. And I pray that you all are doing well and that you hear what was behind what was Gail saying about the way in which progressive minded and mediums of importance are being marginalized by the structures that are in place and how we have a job to support those. There's a reason why it's easier to get here from YouTube than it is from Facebook and how that shifted. There's a reason for that. And it's actually connected to the question that you asked, right? So with that said, I think I want to jump right in. I think it's important when we're thinking through all of this to frame the way that we're thinking about it in terms of industry. What's clear in the missive that we both read is not that this country that's committed to liberty and justice for all sees that there are these underserved communities, and just because it's the right thing to do, that we're going to go ahead and put a focus on helping women and Black folk and folk who identify as queer. That's not what it says, right? What it says is, hey, we're losing money because these people aren't working, right? And it's affecting the industry. So we have to figure out. So first of all, we should just be clear about the language. And this is actually, and the reason why that's important is because when we understand it in that way, then we move past the rhetoric behind an announcement or a fact sheet like this, and we actually get to the function of the nation state.
Yes.
Do me a favor, comment there if that made sense. That is extremely important to note, right? That the reason why we're even having this conversation and the reason why it's being talked about and going to be talked about over the next couple of months is because the empire, the structure, is concerned about its capital, right?
Yes.
And so we have to be able to be thinking about it in that way. And the irony of that, just as a side note, is that when we talk about poor folk, when we talk about disenfranchisement of persons of color, and by the way, in 2024, when we're talking about persons of color, we're talking about a very specific person of color, right? That's a very large spectrum, but they're talking about a very particular sort. It's kind of like when you refer to someone as Asian, and Asia's huge, right? So when you say someone's Asian, you're referring to a specific set of Asian, right? When we're talking about persons of color, they're talking about a very specific sort. It is ironic that there is now, as a political priority, to now fix the mess that they created. Hashtag the mess that they created, right? So we just have to own that at the outstart of all of this, that the American industry, right, has functioned in a way that marginalizes and oppresses, but it's affecting the bottom line, right? So now we have to make a political priority. How do we fix this? Because we're losing money and we don't want to stop the machine, even though the machine is the problem. Does that make sense? Like that?
That's it. Hey, well, give us the hashtag again. I want y'all all to put the hashtag in the chat. What's the hashtag?
The mess that they created. Listen.
The mess that they created. Come on, y'all gotta remember the rules. When y'all stop talking to us in the town hall's over. So y'all have to communicate with us. Let us know that y'all are getting what it is that we are putting out here. That was good. That was good. That was good. So don't miss this, y'all. $2.6 trillion. That's with the T. So I want to read this line again. Research finds that the gaps in labor market opportunities for women and people of color cost the U.S. Okay? It costs the U.S. $2.6 trillion in foregone GDP gap. Now, they says closing these gaps would increase economic output by an additional, I want y'all to hear this, by an additional $3.1 trillion. That's with a T. So we're really important. I don't want y'all to miss that. We are extremely important. So why aren't we, and this is a question to you before we really dissect everything that's out there. Y'all, we're slow walking and we're not in no hurry today. But why, to you, Pastor Holmes, they should be earning our vote. And yet, we like lollygagging. Oh, I may vote. I may not vote. I may do this. I may not do that. I don't know if I'm going to register, without having a clear understanding of what's really going on.
Well, and I like that you highlight the importance. So we have to be clear. So we're in an election cycle, right? Like we're in an election cycle. And, right? We have primary and general, right? Listen, we're going to be picking a president soon. In most states, we're going to be picking local leadership, right? I'm in Ohio, in the city that I pastor and in the city that I live, which, by the way, are two different places, right? There are extremely important elections that are going on where literally millions of dollars are being designated on where to go and who gets to govern those resources are all being picked in those elections. We should also be clear beyond what I just said a moment ago, is that our importance to the nation state is because we have the power to decide. So our importance is connected to our power. The reason why maybe we're as lethargic is because it's difficult for us to realize our power when we deal with the reality of oppression. So we associate power with privilege, right? And the truth is I can be powerful while I'm still struggling. Here's the truth. The African-American vote, whether it shows up or whether it doesn't, has always determined leadership and policy in this country. When we wanted to, we voted in the first Black president of the United States. When we didn't show up in that way, when our vote was divided, when we weren't clear on our agenda, we ended up with the least qualified candidate in the history of American politics, right? Like there's always, so our power has to be realized by us, right? And the people who benefit from it realize it. And that's why in February, during Black History Month, all of a sudden there's a missive from the White House that's talking about the importance of leaning into our communities and making sure that women can vote and that members of the LGBTQIA plus community have their voices heard and have their issues represented. There's a reason for that. And the reason why is because we're more powerful than what we realize. Just real quick, just imagine, and I'm not saying do this. I am not saying do this. I am not saying do this. Do not do this, because I am not saying do this. But can you imagine if every single person who was eligible to vote said, we are not voting until we get a clear platform and a clear idea that addresses our concerns and a plan of action that we can track and hold people accountable, right? What would happen then? The urgency behind that, they would see those votes on the table. Look, Marion's right. It's not that we're important to them personally, right? we're important to their agenda. And when we understand that we have that type of power, right, that we have that type of power that we can affect in that way, then that forces our function to be different.
And you just said something, if I can interject here, you just said something. Once we understand that we have that type of power, I'm not sure we realize we have that type of power yet. Because I'm almost, let me see, what's the word? Angered by hearing so many millennials say, oh, I'm out, I'm tapped out, I'm not voting. I'm like, are you crazy? Do you understand the power you actually have? They're doing some of the things that they're doing because of this. Let's take, for example, how they're bringing her, the DOJ, the special counsel, her to before Congress to talk about not the report itself, but President Biden's mental. Like, is he now a psychologist, a psychiatrist? Does he have that background? Like, where is this coming from? But they're trying to zone that in to make us think that he's crazy. Yeah, we got to get beyond the distractions and realize this is power. So we're actually talking $5.7 trillion that we have access to, which I'm going to bring that question up to you in a moment, Pastor Holmes. I'll kind of like ask it now. Why haven't we accessed that money?
Well, when we're talking about that, trillion with a T, we should be very clear about who has access to that resource and who that's for. Again, the way we have to frame all of this is in terms of the empire, right? Like that $5 trillion, right? That's not making it to Cleveland Avenue and Martin Luther King Boulevard, right? Here you go. That's why every time there's a State of the Union address and the elected official or the commander in chief makes mention of this couple thousand, this couple million new jobs, somehow you still have a family member that's unemployed, right? That they're talking about jobs in an industry that only certain people have access to, right? So we should be very clear about that. When we talk about that level of money, that money goes to financing war. In fact, here you go. A significant portion of that money, you're going to get in trouble. I'm letting you know I'm getting in trouble on your platform. A significant portion of that money goes to finance open air prisons in Palestine, right? So we should be very clear that when we talk about that money, right, that there's a bulk of that goes again to support the industry. This is not personal, right? They don't care about your person, right?
And this is that pork. This is that pork that I talk about that's in the bills. It's like, you gotta, back to framing, we've been talking about reading legislation and writing it, which I didn't get to writing it yesterday. But the reason, like all these words, encourage, can, must, all of these words connect to the pork, connects to the money. So I want to say this too. Yeah, we are only on the first page. There's like 8 pages to this. But I want to say this too. This was done by an executive order, 2 executive orders to be exact, which also should send y'all a message. And there goes those balloons again. I don't know what this is and how this happens. But the fact that the president had to write an executive order and could not get this passed through the House or the Senate should also be a red flag. Like, why can't y'all pass this? Why does this have to be an executive order? So yesterday marked the 1st anniversary, but I want to pull this out. This report highlights examples of more than 650 actions agencies have undertaken since the release of their 2022 Equity Action Plan. But even included in that, we're still trying to get people to act on the SAVE plan. And the SAVE plan, and I'm going to give y'all this website. Somebody put it in the chat, and that's www.studentaid.gov. Right now, they have forgiven $137 billion. Would it be $137 billion? And yet people are like, oh, I don't believe that. I'm not going to do it. I think they just want my Social Security number. They already have your Social Security number. You're not hiding that from them. They already know you went to school. They already know you have a loan. They already know that. So why aren't we? So Pastor Holmes, why aren't we accessing the money that is? Now, we know that this isn't money, the trillion that we can just grab, not all of it anyway, just a portion. But here's an opportunity to grab some of this. But I have literally heard people say, oh no, I'm not giving my social security number. They want too much information. They already have your information.
Yeah. Well, but listen, here's the thing, and we have to hold space for this, in my opinion. The longstanding reality of living under the American empire, right? Listen, it does something to your hope. Listen, we just have to hold space for that, right? Young people, in fact, look, Pastor Alex just said it better than what I'm going to say it. Listen, there are young people who just feel disenfranchised at the end of the day. So you tell me to vote, I go vote, nothing changes. Hey, you tell me to believe in the process, I believe in the process, nothing changes. Hey, you tell me that there's a charismatic leader that says that things are going to be different, and they're going to be different, and then we get business as usual, right? You do that long enough, right? And then have to live through that reality, right? Live through being underpaid, live through getting paid, in terms of our sisters getting paid cents on the dollar, even though they're more qualified than their counterpart, right? When you live through that, right, there's something that happens that does cause you to be less than hopeful, right? To be less than optimistic. We just have to hold space for that. Now, what I would offer, and this is to your point, that there's an opportunity for us to pat our head and rub our stomach at the same time, right? Like, I can be frustrated, right? And I can be irritated, aggravated, agitated. I can be all of that. But I can also own as a truth that doing nothing doesn't get me there either, right? So, right? So it's worth the fight. I know that all of y'all are super saved and that none of y'all are really gangster like that. But if there are a couple of thugs on here, you know that sometimes the only way that you win a fight is that you keep fighting, right? Like, sometimes it's not because you got them hands like that. Sometimes you win the fight because you keep fighting. And with regard to access to opportunity, right, and resources that we do have, some of it is what you're doing. A lot of times we don't know that we have access to that money. We don't know that we have access to resources. We don't know that if you're a business owner, the government literally has money that they have to give you. And because people don't know it, then there are people who get to write it off at the end of a fiscal year, and then it goes into someone else's pocket, right? Like, there's something about knowing that encourages us to then look into it and then embody it for ourselves. So, but we have to be able to do that while also owning that, living in this moment is just frustrating. You tell me to go to the polls, and I go to the polls, and then I read this long thing that isn't in language that I speak. Right? Like, right? Like it's frustrating. I go and I watch at our church. We do at our church we do watch nights for the election. So when they have the debates, so we give ready sheets to everybody so that when everyone has all their information, and then when it comes time to debates, we log on Zoom and we all watch it and comment and then talk about what we think, right? Like, so we sit and do that. The truth is that a lot of times I'm showing up to hear a political debate, and I'm really just watching a reality show, right? No one's really talking about anything. They're just kind of arguing back and forth, and then the day-to-day issues that I deal with don't get addressed. So I think there's an opportunity for us to hold space for the frustration, especially for our young people, right?
Yeah.
Especially for our young folk. But there's also an opportunity to do that and let that, like someone like Kim said, and just let that fuel our fight. And one of the other things that fuels that is information. When we know the things when we know how much money actually moves through our cities, most people don't know.
They don't have
that the government literally pushes millions of dollars through our cities, right? That's supposed to go to the poorest parts of our community. That's supposed to go to those who are returning citizens, right? Most people don't know that we do have legislators that are trying to do that work. And so there's all types of money that does get there, but it never makes it to our community because we don't know it, right?
And we're not out there fighting for it. Yeah, we're not out there fighting for it. And this is money that we should be following the money. We shouldn't just talking about money. Let me go to the next section. This addresses improving financial health of underserved businesses and communities. Y'all, it's in the plan, okay? We're talking over $7 trillion. So they talk about the U.S. banks. Well, let me read this. Families build wealth by starting small businesses, yet many entrepreneurs who are veterans, women or people of color still face discrimination by U.S. banks, are charged higher interest rates, and experience difficulties when trying to obtain the fair and affordable financing options needed to grow their businesses. And then it goes on again. I'm putting this in the Friday rundown. So make sure y'all sign up for it, okay? Seriously. But here's the part that bothers me, Pastor Holmes. And these are my, I write all over my stuff. So here's my question or my statement. Yet there's talk about, and I know this now because I'm in it, yet there's talk about changing the stock, the options, the investments, which will take it out of reach for some of us. Because they see so many of us now, like we've woken up to it, like, let me invest, let me do stocks, let me do option trading. And now they're getting ready to change the bar. They're raising the bar where you could open up an account on, let's say, Thinkorswim app for $500 to start an investment. They're going to move that to $2,500. The stocks, I was on there yesterday looking at how you can go in and buy shares and buy contracts, where a share, depending upon what it is, could have been $1 a share. That makes it $100. It was showing that they were like $9 a share, which will make it $900 because you got to buy 100 shares in a contract. So they're already looking at ways to take it out of reach for us. So when I'm reading this in this plan, it's time for us to circle back and say, okay, we know this money's here, and we need to be secure enough to walk away from banks too. And I think sometimes, like, we want to be with Bank of America, we want to be with Chase, or we want to be with U.S. Bank or Huntington or whatever the bank, Wells Fargo. Because of name, we need to start thinking, okay, what are the Black-owned banks? We need to start thinking, what about the credit unions? We need to be thinking differently and walk away and or negotiate these fees. Can you speak to that as a community? Y'all keep chatting in the chat. Keep chatting in the chat. Let us know if we're touching on something with y'all. Go ahead, Derek.
Listen, one of the ways in which we mobilize our power is by controlling our dollar, right? And you said something so brilliant. You're right. There's a way in which we have to think about our participation within the framework of the American empire, right? I just had this conversation yesterday with somebody. We have to be careful adopting certain rhetoric because it doesn't apply to all of us, right?
Right.
So here you go. I'll give you an example. So in that is talking about resources for those who are business owners, because one of the ways that you build wealth is if you own a business, right? It's not just in what's said, it's what is not being said. So what happens if I'm not a business owner? What happens if I'm not inclined in that way? Think about it like this: the American empire, right? Regardless of what we say about democracy and all of that, by the way, we are not living, I told you I'm gonna get in trouble. We're not living in a democracy. We live in an oligarchy, right? Where there are people who have a bunch of money and they influence policy and then we get to live with it. We haven't been in democracy in over 30 years. We should be very clear about that. But if there's a structure that's in place, and the way in which this structure is built is where there are people on the top who have a whole bunch of money, and there are people at the bottom, right, who do the work, who then feed the money at the top. But then what happens is a financial crisis happens, right? Or the bottom begins to fall out. And now people who had it like this don't have it as much. How do I fix it? I don't break it down all together because the system benefits me, right? The way in which I fix it is I start to democratize the way in which people can get money, right? This is why you see all those ads on your social media about $6,400 that you can get just by sending an email, right? You talk about how you can invest for cheaper than what you ever have in the history of the stock market, right? So that way you democratize the way in which people get money, let people get comfortable with it. And then after they get comfortable, then hike it up to $2,500, right? Whether you can afford it or not. So that way you can still participate because you're believing in a rhetoric that says that one of the ways that you build wealth is by spending money. Did you see what I did right there? Don't miss that. They're literally saying that the way that you build wealth is by spending money, right? That if you just tease that out, that's laughable, right? It doesn't even make any sense. What we have to do in our community is be concerned about the way in which we navigate our resources. Hear this however you hear it, because whatever way you heard it is the way I meant it. I don't invest in anything that is not invested in my community. Nothing. I don't. My resources are in places that give back to the Black community, right? The way I go spend is in the Black community. If it means that I have to order it instead of going to a store to get it, that's fine. But I'm not putting my resources anywhere, right? where it does not invest in community. And again, I know that y'all are six-figure folks, so y'all don't know nothing about a mattress fund. But listen, there are other ways to hold on to your money. Listen, there are other ways to hold. Y'all don't know about mattress financial. Listen, y'all don't know about that. But listen, there are other ways for us to hold on to our money, because a lot of these institutions then charge you to get your money back. Right. So
and let's talk about the people. They're also using our money and then wanting to make us pay a fee. But the thing is, you use my money to keep doing what it is that you're doing. I love what Kim Edmondson's saying here. She said we have to circulate our money in our community. Absolutely. And we also have to support each other in our community. I think, and Derek, you and I were having this conversation yesterday, I think it is sad that we do not do that. For whatever reason, we may think, well, I think they already have this. Well, that's not your business. Reaping and sowing. Let's just talk that principle for a moment. But before I go there, Pastor Alex said, I was taught in high school that the perverted form of democracy is an oligarch. That's what you were saying. I perceive that. Yeah. He perceives that you are a prophet. There you go. Boom. So yeah, and then mattress financial. Yeah, we only have time for like another area, which feeds into what we were just talking about. But in this, on page 3, I know you went through it because we were talking about it yesterday. Ending discrimination in home appraisals. Now, my notes, as a community, we need to talk about this. Stop being embarrassed that you got turned down. Stop being embarrassed. Get beyond your embarrassment and let's have the conversation. That's the only way we're going to be able to help each other. That's the only way. Get beyond what your credit report looks like. Honey, all of our credit reports been jacked up sometime in this life. Get beyond all of that so that we can talk. But as a Black community, there's this level of embarrassment that we don't want to share what's going on. We will go hungry before we tell somebody we're hungry. We will go homeless before we tell somebody we're in trouble. And we have to get beyond that. But on the flip side of that, we got to stop. And y'all have been hearing me talk about this on News in Motion from day one. We have to stop talking about each other at the dinner table. Because you don't know who's at that dinner table may need you a year or maybe even a month from now. But now they're not going to come to you because they were at the table when y'all were talking about somebody else. We have to get beyond that, please. So, Pastor Holmes, when we're talking about the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the PAVE initiative, which I had to go look up what the PAVE initiative was. I was like, we have a PAVE initiative? Yeah, I'm telling you, when you really... And we know everybody's not going to read because that's what they hope we don't read, because in between the book is where they put all the information because they know we're not going to pick it up. But get the Friday rundown. It's going to be in there. When I saw this PAVE initiative, I said, what is this? So, of course, I'm nosy. I went looking for it because I wanted to understand what this is all about. Y'all, this is all about HUD. It's a partnership with HUD. It will partner with the National Association of Real Estate Brokers to tackle appraisal biases and discrimination in the housing market. I'm like, what? Like, what is happening here? Y'all, but once we know about it, we have to access this. So, Pastor Holmes, can you talk? I know we're wrapping up, but I want you to spend some time talking about this and what we can do when we're looking at homelessness. Y'all, we didn't even get the food insecurity. We're just going to do a part 2 next week. If you can come, hopefully you're available. Just say yes, Pastor Holmes. But can you speak to this, please?
Yeah. So listen, one of the ways in which we've dealt with the reality of oppression in this context under the American empire is the way in which the way in which opportunities around housing, what it means to have a home, right? And how we've been disqualified from that. We just have to own that as a truth. That's a long-standing thing. Whether that's redlining back in the day in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and even present day. In the city that I live in, there was a bank that got in a bunch of trouble around their discriminatory practices around housing, right? And the reason why I lift that is because the way in which we should be navigating in light of that truth is not only waiting on policy, but now that we know this, again, we talked about being empowered by information, is that now when I'm having my home appraised, we hold people accountable. So it's not just looking at how my home is being appraised, right? But I'm also, because I know the reality that property appraisal discrimination is a real thing, right? That I'm able to compare what my appraisal is to the market value of the places where I reside, right? There's a way in which we should, when you're aware, right, then you then function differently, right? When I know that there's an injustice there, there's the potential for injustice. It's not judgment to be discerning, right? There's a difference, right? I'm not judging you. I'm just saying that I know the reality of the structure is that I don't get treated in the same way that other people do. That's whether I'm Black, that's whether I'm a woman, that's whether I'm poor, that's whether I'm of a certain age. All of those discriminations exist within the framework of appraisal discrimination. So when I know that and I'm getting my property appraised, right? One of the ways that you can navigate that is, right, you can get a second opinion, right? You don't have to have just one person appraised, right? Or one institution appraised, right? Another way to navigate that is that you hold accountable, right? You figure out, you know, what's the appraisal looking like in my community? What's the going rate around this, especially if you're taking care of it, right? So, right there, when you're aware of that level of discrimination, then you move differently. I want to go back because there's something real quick. I know we got to get ready to go, but Heather Crabtree said something. We were talking about kind of the way in which we navigate our resources, and that when you live on a budget, it's a challenge. And that is absolutely right, right? That it's expensive to eat right. Right? It's expensive for a lot of people to make those day-to-day decisions to eat right. Listen, the thing about McDonald's is that it's convenient, right? It's simple. You walk in, you get the burger, you fall asleep, you wake up, you have your day, right? I want to own that we are in a moment as Americans. And by the way, you're an American. All of this is in the framework that is, as you are a citizen of this country, you shouldn't have to have a lesser standard of living. I'm trying to live like they do in the Hamptons. And not even because I want to, just because I live in a country that Lord knows they got it, right? And there's no reason why I shouldn't have it. I pay taxes. I go ahead and vote. Listen, I haven't moved to Ghana yet. Listen, so there is no way, right, that I shouldn't have access in the same way that other people do, right? But we are in a moment where, as Americans, right, whether American, African, or otherwise, as Americans, that we have to actively be thinking about that we're going to have to struggle a little bit to get where we got to be. The notion that it's going to be easy, and if we just complain enough, or if we just wait idly enough, that beneficent leadership will go ahead and bestow onto us what it is that we deserve, that is a lie from the pit of hell. Listen, we are going to have to own that we are going to have to struggle a little bit, that we're going to have to be uncomfortable with that. And Frederick Douglass says, without struggle, there's no progress. And perhaps the reason why we haven't progressed in the way that we'd like is because we haven't embraced the reality and the constancy of struggle. But when we embrace that, God responds to us in beautiful ways. And
thank you for that. Thank you. And the other thing I want to say to Heather as well is, if we would start shopping local, we may see the prices decrease, because we're going back to the mom and pop stores. Their prices go up because people aren't coming in. So if we start shopping them, so y'all, this is what we're going to do. Y'all going to have to fill up this chat. We have several more pages to go. We have the expanding safe, accessible, affordable transportation. We have addressing inequity in health. We have environmental protection. We have reforming disaster assistance programs, supporting disadvantaged farmers. That's the USDA. We have ensuring contracting opportunities for small disadvantaged businesses. We're talking like $1.2 billion with a B that they need to spend before the end of their administration. I just want to say that too. Expanding mental health services. We have food insecurity. We have caring for women veterans, fostering community development, using rental payment history to advance home ownership. So if y'all want to have this conversation continue next Thursday, put in the chat to let us know.
And real quick, Gail, just to piggyback on what you said, the reason why all of this is important, the reason why you need to sign up for the rundown is because these are all things that you can hold elected official accountable to. So they're telling you what the agenda is going to be. These are going to be our political priorities in this cycle. So when it's the debates, when you're seeing it on TV, when you're watching it in the news, we have things to hold them accountable to. listen, I ask, I don't care who I'm voting for. Listen, I ask questions, right? I'm writing folk. I'm calling in places. Listen, I don't have time for the play, right? This is what you said in February. It was Black History Month. And you know, and rather than talk about Black history and the way in which our history is more marginalized by the institutions in place, you hit us with political agenda. That's fine. I don't need you to care in order for me to care. But what I do care about is what you said and how this affects my community and how this affects my family. And so the way in which I'm going to be thinking about that is how I hold you accountable to it. So I just wanted to offer that the reason why it's so important is because now we have stuff that we can hold them to. And if they're not doing what they said, and if it doesn't align with our value system in our community, then you don't get my vote, regardless of what side of the aisle you sit on.
Yeah. And I see y'all saying continue. And by the way, good morning, Janet. Good to see you jump on here. So y'all, we're going to tag team this inspirational message. And I'm going to start off and I'm going to let Pastor Holmes finish it out. On yesterday, my husband kicked off a new Bible study. It's on Zoom. And this is not to take you away from your church or anything like that, but I know people like different things. I've joined all kinds of people's Bible studies if it's something that has pulled me in. So it's for the next 6 weeks. It started yesterday for Limps. For the next 6 weeks, it's called This Is Us. And yeah, the Bible study jacked me up. I'm his wife, and I was jacked up. And he was talking about, he's taken one person, one character each week. And yesterday was Zacchaeus. And he broke down that whole Luke 19, verses 1 through 10. And he always has a word with the character. And the one word was longing. And he said something. He gave 3 points. He said, no matter what we have to keep going. Keep moving forward. He said every step matters in your walk with God. Number 2, he talked about connecting the dots. I said, you've been listening to News in Motion, haven't you? And number 3, this is the part that just jacked me up. He said, embrace your discontent. It's okay to be unsatisfied. And I wanted to raise that today, especially because I was, I told Derek, and I said, I don't know who's going to do inspirational message, but I decided as we were going through, we're going to tag team here today, because it's something that Pastor Holmes said a few moments ago that I thought was just extremely important. And that is this: it's okay to struggle a little bit. Go ahead and embrace that discontent. Go ahead and be unsatisfied, but struggle with it, work with it, wrestle with it, but know that your contentment comes from God. So Zacchaeus, although he was rich, wealthy, all that good stuff, he was climbing that tree. He needed to see. He didn't know that he was going to come face to face with Jesus, but he did. But there was something he was seeking. There was something he was looking for. And when my husband said this, and he ended the Bible study that way yesterday, I was like, well, are you going to give me an answer to that? He said, embrace your discontent. It's okay to be unsatisfied. Y'all, embrace where you are and say, okay, what am I going to do to move forward? What do I need? Who do I need to connect with? How do I connect these dots? Y'all, what we're doing here on News in Motion, we are connecting the dots, or at least we're trying to. And if we fail some days, hey, forgive us. And hopefully we'll come back and put the pieces back together the following day or the following week or the following month. But our goal is to give you everything so that we are making educated decisions when we're going to the voting booths. We are having the critical thinking questions when we are attending these town hall meetings. We know that we're not for everyone, but I have to embrace that discontent with, well, why aren't we seeing numbers like we used to see? Now we got more on the podcast audio because people are back to work, but the viewership, why is the live video going down? Is it the suppression from Meta? Is it on Facebook? Is it like, what is it? Or is it that people really don't care anymore? And how do we navigate that? Do we transition to something else? And I'm not saying we're doing any of that. I already told y'all we're committed here through the election, which is November 7th. But even with that, to embrace it and say, if one person shows up on the video, I'm going to give it everything I have, because that one person is possibly connected to 10 or more other people. And if they're showing up every time we come on the air, they're sharing it with somebody. That's my story. What's yours? What do you need to embrace where you're unsatisfied or you have some discontent? What does that look like? And I want you to wrestle with that over this weekend. So now I'm going to tag it off, shoot it over to Pastor Holmes to wrap us up.
Well, I don't know if you all noticed, somebody put it in the chat, but somehow in the middle of News in Motion, we started having church, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. So Gail and I didn't plan this at all, right? But what I'm going to say, watch how it's directly in line with what she says. Talking about just being all right with being angry. Listen, as human beings, we all have moments where we want to be accepted. It feels good to have people like us, right? It feels good to have people welcome us. In fact, part of the way that we function within this American context is because there's a part of us that just wants to be accepted. We just want to be treated like everybody else. But I want to suggest, because I'm talking to savvy, sophisticated, sagacious folk, that there's a danger with acceptance. And the danger with acceptance is that sometimes the price of admission when it comes to acceptance is the loss of our agenda, right? That sometimes in order to be accepted, we have to not say certain things and be quiet about certain things and not trouble the boat with certain things and not agitate certain things. And what I want to offer is, I don't believe that to be God. Listen, because some of y'all didn't go to Bible study, if you have some time and go to the 7th Psalm in the 11th verse, it says something so profound. It says that God is a righteous judge. And here's my part. And God is a God that feels indignation every day. Isn't that fascinating that there's a God who's gracious and kind and loving and gives favor and is merciful, but there is also a God who gets mad. Now, because you're smart, you're wondering, what does God get mad about? I'm glad you asked. Listen, God gets mad about injustice. God gets mad about disenfranchisement. God gets mad about people being mistreated. God gets mad about trillions of dollars that somehow don't make it to the least of these. God gets mad about women who are treated wrong because of the way in which they were born. God gets mad about racism. God gets mad about classism. God gets mad about oligarchy. Listen, it is not the case that God sits on high and is indifferent to the things that we deal with. God is a God that gets angry. And if you and I are created in the image of God, then we have a right to be mad. We have to be angry. There's a difference between angry and mad, because mad means I don't have control. Anger means that I'm just upset to the point where I'm going to do something about it. And so there is an opportunity in this moment for all of us to not only be inspired to live in a way that's liberated, but to also be inspired in a way to know that God gets angry and I have a right to be angry. I have a right to be angry, and I'm so angry that I'm going to do something about the way in which my lived existence looks. And if that means I'm going to challenge a legislator, if that means I've got to read a bit more policy, if that means I got to hold on to a little bit more of my dollar, if that means I have to be inconvenienced so that way I can be liberated, then that's fine. I'll do all of that. But I am allowed to be angry about the conditions that I live in, and then allow that to be the fuel in the tank as I press toward what God has for me. We didn't plan that.
We didn't plan.
We didn't plan that. Look how the Lord works. Listen, we get to be angry. I've made up my mind. that it is a beautiful, this is what Ruha Benjamin says, that it is a beautiful thing to be on fire.
It is. It is. I've made the decision that, and you have to come face to face with things. I made the decision that whatever it takes to get out the information I have. I know everyone's not going, well, everyone can't go to the White House press briefings, but since I have that card, I'm accessing it, and I'm taking the information and I'm bringing it right here to News in Motion. Just like I sent you over, y'all. Listen, this is the truth. I sent over Pastor Holmes the information from the White House, and this is going to be on live broadcast, so they're gonna know I did it. And I said, look, you cannot share that email with anybody. I said, I'm gonna need you to erase that email once you get it. And he said, I got you. So he made sure that he erased it. But it was that important. It's like, let's read this. I know he already knows this because he goes to the White House. So I know he already has all this information. But y'all, I made a decision. I'm going to make sure I'm bringing it to you. regularly. Now it's up to you what you do with it. And you may say, I'm tired of her talking about that. That's all cool. But don't get so tired that you miss some important information that you need. We're asking questions continuously. Why don't we have access to this? Well, it's not that it's not there. It's that we don't know how to access it. Y'all, come on. We're talking, what I say, $7.2 trillion. We need to figure out, okay, how do I bring this to the table? How do I become a part of this conversation? How do I tap into this for my organization or my business or whatever it is that we're doing? What does that look like? But here's the other part. As people, as Americans, as Derek said, and I'm gonna go a step further and say, as people of color and as women, we need to start coming together and supporting each other and accessing this information. We got to stop hating on each other. Seriously, that has to stop. We need to really start supporting each other, start praying for one another. Something I wanted to start today, and then we're almost out of here. And I know it's been an hour, so thank y'all for hanging out with us. Janet Stevens says, I need to hit the replay to hear the beginning of this $7.2 trillion. Yes, 7.2 trillion with a T is out there, and again, they have to get through this by, especially if they don't become reelected, to get through this by this budget, right, Derek? Yeah. This money got to
go. They got to move this resource, right? Like, so
move the resource. And I don't even think sometimes we realize that they have to move the resource. So starting today, I want to specifically pray over these next 39 days for somebody. I'm not going to say a prayer here. I'm just going to give a suggestion of how we can pray. And this morning I woke up thinking about how people are attacking President Biden in his mental state. We don't know that man's mental state. I sit there and I be thinking, what was I about to say? I think to some degree that's normal. To some degree it is age. To some degree it could be stress that he doesn't sleep or whatever. Whatever the issues, I want us to just think about him throughout today and pray for that man and pray that the attacks will stop. And I'm going to go a step further. Yep, I got to be fair and balanced. I also want to pray for the mental state of the other person, okay? And that will be Donald J. Trump. Because if he's back in office, we want to pray that his mental state as well. So we need to pray for both of them. So with that, y'all know what I say. Stay well, everyone. Let us know in the chat. Send us an email or something letting us know, what are your thoughts on Town Hall Thursdays? I think they're off the chain, if you ask me. That's what I think. Oh, by the way, I told all of you that Inspire, a call to action, is being printed right now. Those who ordered over a year ago, your books will still ship first. The other books will come. We still have this link up if you want to reserve a copy. Y'all, it's over 420 something, 30 something pages. It's hardback. It's amazing. I'm so in awe with this book. So we're going to start sprinkling things out there. If you want us to have a book signing in your neck of the woods, let us know. We're starting to schedule those as well. So I'm really excited. Again, if my dad is still watching, happy birthday, Dad. You're 88 years old today. You still cool. So I just want to say happy birthday to you. All right, y'all. Derek Holmes will be back next Thursday, right, Derek?
Yeah. My plan is to be back next Thursday.
Don't go anywhere. I'll talk to you after the ending. But y'all know what I say. Stay well, everyone. And people are saying happy birthday. Thank y'all so much for shouting on my dad. Hopefully he's still watching. Y'all know what I say, everyone. Stay well and remember to make some bold moves. We are out.
NewsInMotion.